helmets upright. Reach out and touch the sky. Boy, you with me, don't wait for nights. Going baptized, yes, spirit baptized. Going in and the helmets upright. Reach out and touch the sky. Boy, you with me, don't wait for nights. Going baptized, yes, spirit baptized.
Hey, welcome back to I'm Going In. I've got an incredible guest, yet another incredible guest that has agreed to come on and share his story of strength and resilience and just how he's given back. So I'm thrilled to introduce Faust Ruggiero on today's episode of I'm Going In. He's a renowned therapist, author, and clinical trainer with nearly 40 years of experience in counseling and mental health. He's the founder of the Process Way of Life counseling program and an author of the award-winning Fix Yourself Handbook series, which offers actionable strategies for overcoming life's challenges. He's got a background in both clinical and developmental psychology. Faust has dedicated his career to helping others transform their adversities into growth opportunities. His passion in empowering individuals to take charge of their lives is really, truly inspiring. I got a chance to read your entire bio, and it's pretty incredible on everything you've done. But I'm honored to have you on my guest to really just share stories of your personal resilience and self-improvement and how you're helping people. So thank you, sir, for being on I'm Going In.
Todd, it is a pleasure to be with you today. Thanks so much for inviting me.
So talk to me about, I always like to start with this, especially people of your your experience and everything. Let's take it way back. What was kind of the initial introduction to where your field of expertise, and why did you get into that?
Todd, I'm one of those people that I think I knew from the beginning it was going to be people that were going to, be the center of my life. As a little kid, I was the kid that listened to everyone. Then when I was was just at an interview, a magazine interview yesterday, and they asked that question. I said, I remember my father having a stroke when I was 9, big time stroke, and he was around for a while yet, but now the 9-year-old decided he was going to be man of the house. I was figuring out how to be 9, let alone figure out that, and my mom was a good mom. She wasn't going to let that happen, but that really had my focus on siblings and mom and take care of this and take care of that. And although it was challenging, I really got a taste of what it was like to engage at that level. And it never left me. High school, I was that kid everybody, came to and listened. I listened to them. So college was psychology, and it took off from there. And now we're 45 years later, and I'm still hanging in.
Yeah, but you're different. You're going over and above probably what the job asks for, right? What drove you, once you got your degree and you really started getting into this, what was kind of the passion point where you said, hey, you know what, I could really make some changes in this. I can really go out and do more. Was there a defining moment in that? I know, unfortunately, I'm sorry to hear that your dad had that stroke at 9. You started developing those coping skills and that will to help. But after college, once you started getting settled, what was that key moment?
Well, I got out of grad school and I said, I want to get a kind of a diversified plan going. So I started working in different places. Substance abuse facilities. I worked with deaf kids in clinics, hospitals. But around, I think it was 1984, I got an offer to be a counselor in a prison. And I really had to mull that one over, but got there and saw life from a whole different aspect. Everything is stripped down and people were just trying to survive, or they were trying to get themselves in a direction that could make sense for them. And it really changed the way I looked at things.
Mm.
It wasn't about the person that came in and, had the nice house and the cars and the vacations and the whole deal. It was just right down to everything stripped away and the essence of a human being right in front of you. And you have two options when you're doing that. You can, make it a job and go in and do your prison thing and say, okay, fine, they're not going to change. Or you can say, all right, now I'm really going to get my talents going. This, this is the test. This is where, it's sort of like, you have a baseball history. It's like you can bat for the, with a pitcher at the AAA level, and that's great. And then you get to the Cy Young guy at the plate, and you say, well, now I'm going to see what I really have. Well, that
Yeah.
was me at that position, and at that time in life. That was where, okay, now you're really going to have to dig deep, and identified some things. I saw some things about myself that, yeah, I'm not as different from them to begin with. And every person, every single person, one at a time, is who I connect with. And this is where humanity is not on the mass stereotype level. It's one person at a time, and that's what I'm doing to this day. It's one person at a time, whether it's a friend or someone I'm meeting or it's someone I'm counseling. Focus all my energies right there.
Yeah, everybody has their own story, right?
They do.
We all process things differently, even though we may have gone through the same experience or have the same relatable trauma, maybe with similar backgrounds. But I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to get into this part a little bit with you, is the coping skills that we build as we're growing up. And I think, if you could maybe touch on that aspect of, psychology and what you've seen and the people that you've worked with, whether it's at the prison or just in everyday life. But when you're dealing with someone that maybe has a lot of adventures growing up, right? They've dealt with a lot, or maybe age demographic. Maybe it's back when I was, raised, you could fall off your bike, you get back on. But I was actually on my bike first, right? I was riding around, I was climbing trees, learning how to fend for myself in certain areas. I grew up in a major league household. It's a little bit different, but I was amongst adults my entire life. So my coping skills were more at the adult level. I learned a lot on how to take care of myself, opposed to maybe some of my friends that they didn't have that. They, basically were kids all the way through. So when you now all of a sudden experience challenge or trauma or adversity in your life later on, how impactful do those coping skills kind of play into your own ability to get through or overcome some of those traumatic events in a prison or in everyday life?
When I look at coping skills, there are two kinds of coping skills for me. They're the kind that divert your attention away from something. I don't want to feel the pain, so I've got these skills that push me one way or one direction or the other, and keep me away from the pain or from facing whatever the trauma was. And the other kind of coping skills are the ones that say, okay, I need to learn how to deal with this. And those skills are designed to move me in the other direction, which is to take that event, whatever it may be, that life-changing event, and make that work for me. Maybe integrate that into the way I think and the way I live. And it's very doable. It's like it's the difference between playing to your weaknesses or playing to your strengths. A coping skill designed just to keep you surviving, that's kind of an admission. I'm not very strong, so I got to keep on leaning on these. Where a coping skill that says, I know I'm going to move this forward, is helping you access strengths. It's a placeholder. It's there until you get to the point that you say, well, I've overcome this, or I'm in a direction where I can take that piece of my life, that part that maybe didn't work or it was challenging, and turn that into something that can work for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've leaned a lot on that in my own personal growth is, what I was able to learn as a young kid growing up. I had two uh, lifelong military grandfathers, one Marine, one in the Navy. I love putting my fatigues on and rolling around in the dirt, all those different things, right? Also love getting out and playing ball. And I grew up in a household where my dad was a strong individual. He was a Major League Baseball player. You did not want to come out to a ball game and take him out because he would like give you the death look. He was a competitor. That's
I
how we
remember
were.
it very well. I remember that look.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, to be able to flip the switch, but then when he crossed the line, he would always say, listen, when When you cross that white line, you can be your own animal, your own beast. You're in control of your own destiny out there. But then when you walk on the other side of it, you become this nice, polite person again and back into civilization, right? How much does that play in identifying, like in my case, coming back from a mass shooting, doing what I did, trying to, even though I had tons of support telling me, hey, you need to go to EMDR therapy, you need to do this, you need to do that. I wanted to do it myself. Like I tried battling that myself, thinking I'm going to be fine. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to get over it. No blood, no foul, dust myself off, stand back up until I just couldn't anymore. So with that mindset of learning different styles of coping skills, being thrown into certain situations, watching your family deal with how they deal with their own trauma, their own anxiety, pushing through things. How much does that play into, how you've approached a lot of these tough individuals in life? What has been your advice to them?
I always talk about being balanced
Mm,
physically, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, and even I've had some opportunities to deal with ball players, and I said you got everything in your physical, emotional, and intellectual is taking you right down. When I deal with people in the office, my family, myself, I always say, okay, these things are all happening, and they're going to continue to happen in your life. Your ability to be balanced is what your dad was really saying. You're on the field, you're a warrior. That's the end of it. That's, and that's those are the players that I grew up watching. That's the way, that was
yeah,
the mindset. It wasn't about so much about a buck here or an endorsement there. It was I'm on the field in my position. This is my field, and that's the end of
right.
it. And then but then you can leave and come home and say, no, I'm a family guy, and you guys are my priority, and this is how we're going to live, and we're going to work things on that level. The balance, to be able to balance one's life is where the secret is. Learning how to control your intellect so that you're working on solutions. You're looking at for facts. You're not teasing yourself. You're not fooling yourself with things that don't make sense. Your emotions aren't taking over. So you're saying, and that's where all the I can'ts come from. And example, as crazy as this sounds, and I've been, like I said, as we were talking earlier, I've counseled first responders when the towers went down, and all different kinds of people, all kinds of trauma, veterans, and coming home as POWs, all that kind of stuff. The events in and of themselves are horrific, but in terms of the way the mind deals with them, they're basically benign until we attach our emotions to them. The emotions are what replay. You see the person on the ground. You know they're shot. You're carrying people. It's the ability to take all those attributes, physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, and balance them and have them work together so one doesn't override another one. When there's an override, then the balance is affected. That's what that whole process way of life I talk about it is.
Yeah.
It's about balancing it out. And when you learn to do that, the emotions don't come and rip you apart because the intellect says, stop. These are the facts. This happened. This is what we need to do. This is where we need to go. And strength comes there. But the emotions are all, I always call it, it's like a virus sometimes in our brain. They rip through, and they can be wonderful for love and affection and all that good stuff. But when they attach themselves to something like you went through, there's a whole different story now because it just replays, and it doesn't replay to our strength. It replays to the weakness.
Yeah, you're so right. You hit on so many different great points, of course. But when you think about like our first responders, our military, our veterans, they go through these challenging ordeals. They're called upon to go on scene. There's no video that says, here, this is what you're going to look at. You're gonna feel this way. There's no like strategy. There's no board meeting. There's nothing, right? So you get on scene, you're reacting to things seeing a horrific scene, for example, or as a military combat vet, you got a duty, you're put into this firefight. You never did that before in your life. Now, the first time you got all these things happening, and how you deal with that, or live with that. I've found, for me, my recipe is a lot what you have built your book on, in a process way of life. I call it mind mapping in my own way. I think I read it somewhere, because I was trying to figure out why I'm how much work I have put into this. First of all, you got to work at it, right? You can't just all of a sudden say, "Oh, I'm going to read a book and then I'm good." You have to apply that to your everyday emotional attachment to your trauma, right? And so now I know that if my trauma is out here in front of me, I can see it, I can feel it, I can live with it. I'm good there. When the trauma starts to back up on me, I've done enough homework on my body, on my soul, on my spirit, to recognize, okay, that's coming back. I can feel it. I'm getting my spidey senses. Your process way of life, like, I've developed a process on how to live my life in certain situations, and I know how my trauma is going to react to those. So now I do have somewhat of a strategy. How does that apply to what you've been building, in your books, and then apply that to, like, in a real world, scenario, like a first responder? You have firefighters that are going out as a team, dealing with trauma, and then coming back to a firehouse of safety. They're talking about things. And then the other example I'd like for you to go on is the difference between firefighters and police, where maybe a police officer goes out in a single unit and then is called from place to place and doesn't really have that opportunity to learn how to, I guess, learn how to live with those emotions and what that means in that process way. Can you give us just talk to us about that?
Absolutely. And you touched on a number of things there.
Yeah, sorry, I probably should have broken it up, but
No, you didn't have to, because I can run with that. There definitely is a difference between firefighters and police. In essence, you're still having people running in rather than running away or out. That's the first thing we have to know. The key to dealing with them, and anyone else for that matter, is not to focus on the fire or what happened on the fire or the shooting or whatever it may be, because that has happened or it's going to happen. But the key isn't the event. The key is to make us strong as a person and be able to get ready to deal with anything that's going to come up. It's really, if you think about it, those events are outside stimuli that enter our minds, our souls, our emotions. It depends on what they're coming into. So what I did, I kind of did it, I backed it up a little bit with the people I started to work with. I started with correctional officers at the prison. Then it was the local police, the state police came on. I had a couple FBI officers that came on. Then it was the fire people. And then it was the ambulance people. And I said, the key to this is to get you strong before you go in. So why don't we not stop, but why don't we put our emphasis on before you go into events? Let's get you ready for any trauma, at least almost any. We can't say it's going to be perfect, but let's get you strong enough to do your job, love doing your job, get in there and be able to perform, to save lives, but to be a person who emotes, but in a healthy way, because you're going to see horrible things. 2 years ago, I had a fire. It was rescue and first responders of the firemen who came back at a house that burned, and 4 kids were in it, and all of them perished in the fire. And you want to talk, I mean, and then, you're seeing, you have to wait till the coroner gets there. So you're standing by bodies until the coroner gets there, which was over 2 hours. You're standing by kids who, are burned. Hard to not see that in your mind anymore. But these people were prepared, and some of them made calls right away. I got a call. This is happening. What do we do? This is what you're going to do, and I'll meet you back at the house after you're done. Quick.
Yeah.
You know, it's always about preparing people. People think it's, well, that's for the police and the first responders until you're on the road and there's an accident, or you're in the place and there's a shooting and you now are part of that. It's about being able to be strong to face anything in your life. That's what it's
I
about.
love that. I think when I think about, as I relate it to sports, right? You take a play. I remember I got a chance to talk with Jamal Charles one time. A previous employment, I worked for Shock Doctor Mouth Guards, and he was an endorser of it. And we were talking, and I said, what happens to you when you put your mouth guard in, like in a game? I'd heard stories about running backs and this whole mental mindset, right? And so when they get into that position and they put that mouth guard in, it's that whole mindset of what my dad had with, I'm crossing the line. I'm now
Exactly.
becoming this new person. I'm mentally prepared for whatever happens, to get hit from the side, whatever, but I'm going hard until that whistle blows, right? And the same thing, in sports, in life, as we prepare to go into a board meeting, I'm mentally prepared. I take my deep breath. I learn these kind of little techniques to get me prepared to go in and deliver the best board presentation ever. First responders the same way. What I've noticed, though, going through my experience, unfortunately, is now I've been able to resonate with first responders. They're hearing parts of my story and they're saying, hey, that's exactly what happens. Like, we go in to this. But what you're saying is essentially, instead of, because I put my body armor on, I believe in that moment it was put on me. I'm a very faith believer. And I think in that moment I was challenged with a yes or no question, and I chose yes, and I had the angels above watching my tail and my six all the way through. There's no way I could have done what I did without the help of my guardian and God. But my armor in my mind got put on later to defend my own internal like craziness that was going on. And I put on my armor every weekend when I go to church. It replenishes me. But you're talking about learning how to put that armor on before all that happens, learning the process of the way of life to encounter any beast that's put in front of you, to be able to comprehend and do the job regardless of whatever it is, because then you're going to be able to focus on how to walk forward with that, right? That's basically.
Yeah. And it's,
Okay.
to me, it's one step farther. That armor you talk about,
Yeah.
people like to take it off.
Yeah.
It's work to keep it on. They think it's heavy.
Yeah.
When you get to the point that you understand, you may cross the line, then come back, but your mindset has changed as soon as you accepted that. We go back to your dad. I watched him pitch many, many times. He was a competitor. I doubt that he walked across the line and said, okay, now I'm benevolent Bert here and I'm just hanging out. No, that was his makeup. The armor was always on. There was an activation button that they
Mm,
press.
mm,
In our daily lives, for example, I leave the house. I get in my car. My mind already says, okay, watch this guy coming, that person who's running. I'm the guy, the red light, the light is coming. And even though it's green, I'm slowing down and my head's going back. I'm swiveling because I'm checking these two roads. Big deal. I have the right of way. When you get T-boned, that meant nothing.
right.
So it's about keeping armor on all the time, but it is benevolent armor. It's always there, ready to activate. When you get strong inside, it self-activates.
Mhm.
So when you rush into something, I've counseled over 400 first responders, veterans, what have, and when we make this change and we say stop just assuming things are going to be okay, get the guarantees out of your head, get the easy life out of your head. Enjoy everything you do, but always know that around any turn, something can happen, and you want to be strong. It's not like you got to be looking all the time. It's that it's the athlete that in the off season is doing all the work to prepare for the next season. It's between games and how you eat and how you rest. It's all that preparation to make you strong. So when you get into it, you're ready to go. That's how life should be. That's what I call it, getting strong in the inside. If you're not, then you kind of you have to figure your way through it. Then those coping things, they're in retrospect because now the event has happened. It came and crushed you, and you got to figure out which way you're going to go. But if the armor's on, if you're ready, and it depends for some people. For me, I'm a person of faith, so my spiritual armor is huge.
Right.
That's just the way it is. And
Right.
it's not benevolent, peaceful one. It's a power source. I mean, if you understand it. So along with that, and I'm late 60s. I'm still working out hard every day. I work with my emotions, so they're down. Give my brain enough time to think about what's going on, so my intellect works. You're doing that all the time. Things come up like that. I'm not saying you don't get traumatized, but it's a whole different system that is at work in those situations.
The survivor symbol means so much to me as a mass shooting survivor. I wear my survivor phoenix with pride, representing strength and resilience. It reminds us that even when we feel knocked down, we're not alone. Together, we can rise stronger. A portion of the profits will support other survivors needing help. Get yours today at toddblyleven.com. Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the hard part is doing the hard part, right? It's the self-identification. It's learning how you cope with certain tragedies in your life, what makes you emotional. Some people aren't built to be first responders. Some people aren't built to go into the military world. And that's okay. I think it's identifying who you are as an individual and making sure that whatever armor you're putting on is armor to protect you as an individual, because the armor that I put on is not going to be the same armor you put on. Even though we are huge faith believers and we can put all the different colors on and everything else that we want, it's going to be different because we all deal with things differently. But how does that transcend then into, I have a lot of coaches that listen to this, right? A lot of teachers, so a lot of educators, let's call them. How does this way of the process way of life and some of the things that you have seen, how does this translate into the educators now educating their team, their students, their firefighters, their employees in a way that doesn't come across like, hey, you need to do this? Is it leading by example? Is it telling stories of faith? Like, how have you worked with leadership on this?
Leaders, people think, are the more difficult people to teach because they have their own way of doing things, and they're not. I'm very matter of fact with them, and we're talking about when they come in, they say, "Hey, I want to be able to teach these people. I want to coach these guys." I said, "Well, time out." I said, I'll give you an example. A woman comes in my office and says, "Well, I'm glad you're helping me. Obviously, you've had your life together for a long time." And I said, "Whoa, let's go time out again here, because the only way I'm able to give this to you is to have experienced where you are, basically, in my version of that, and then to be able to come through it." So my first thing with the educators is to say, let's get you okay. Let's make sure you're dealing with things, because you are the person that's going to deliver it, and they're going to see. I mean,
Great.
these are going to be smart people. They're going to look and say, "Well, does he or she have that? You're teaching me this." If you're it's the off season and you're really getting in shape, and your coach comes in and he's 250 pounds and he hasn't, and I'm not talking muscle here, and he's got Twinkies in his hand, you're not listening. If the person who is trying to teach you isn't practicing and showing you how to do these things, it's going to be a problem. You've been around sports. The good managers, the good coaches are the ones that have that in their head. The armor's on, but they got the balance. I'm watching in Philadelphia. We got a great manager now who communicates, and he's got his life balanced. When you hear him talk, he's not reacting all over the place. They didn't get the best record in baseball. They didn't get that home field advantage. He just says, "Yeah, and we're going to take what we have and we're going to go and watch us go. That's the way life has to be. The leader has to have it, okay first. And once we do that, people watch, and it's just like you walk in a room with someone who's got it. You feel it when you walk in.
Mhm.
You say, man, I want to do that too. And then it's about teaching the work, and it's not about the goal. It's not, you don't get in spring training and say World Series is around the corner, and you know what's going on for spring training and 162 plus. It's just the way it is. You got to like the work. That's the second key. You have to love the work that goes into making yourself what you want to be. If you consider it a chore, it's not happening.
That's it right there. It's leading by example, but you can't lead by example if you don't really understand what you're leading for.
And embrace it.
And embrace it. Yeah, you have to. And at the end, I'm a testament of it. I have never seen life this clear in the last 7 years. I mean, unfortunately, like I've gone through a lot. Like there were a lot of other incidences in my life where I've stopped, pulled over on the road, and pulled people out of cars, and pulled a man out of a burning truck. There's been things that I've just been put in front of to react in the right way, and I'm proud that I did. There's a lot that I didn't learn about myself, in terms of always holding things in and trying to do it all on my own instead of raising my hand and saying, hey, I need some help here. I'm really struggling. I'm struggling trying to define my own success. How can I lead somebody, have a team of employees if I'm totally unhappy with not even knowing what success means to me, right? Not just because I'm getting paid like you're mentioning, but success where I'm feeling accomplished every day. I'm feeling good on the inside every day. I'm in control of my own emotions. I know what I need to do in order to live life to the most fullest and happiest way. And I've been around a lot of those people. And man, like you just said, they've got it together. Whether it's a Tom Kochman, one of my managers in A-ball that I wanted to run through a wall for, one of the greatest coaches I've ever been around, to Randy Vanderhook when I was younger, and Connie Mack. He just got inducted into the Connie Mack Hall of Fame. So congratulations, coach, because you deserve it. But there's those people that have the confidence that you just look at them and go, man, like you're not just a superstar. You're not just an actor. You're not just making. Bryce Harper is a great one. I think you look at him, or Freddie Freeman, you look at these guys that are just natural ability. Like, yeah, they're great athletes, but why are they great athletes? Aaron Judge, like when you get to that point, what does he do to perfect his game? Consistent play. He's an expert. He's a perfectionist to his own ability on what he's doing mechanically. But right here, he's confident in his ability to go up. The Wade Boggs approach. I'm going to hit anything, anywhere. It doesn't matter what you say. I know I'm going to strike out, but I'm not striking out with you. That whole mentality until he gets that third strike. I'd like to kind of bring this back into your book, and it's all about like your Fix Yourself Handbook, because we're not born that way, right, Faust? I mean, you got to learn these. We're not all going to get a chance to talk to someone like you with your experience. We don't get this opportunity all the time. So when you were writing this series, I noticed one of the things I thought was really cool, that you try to like keep your lessons into short, concise kind of teachings, which I thought was brilliant, number one. But can you talk about, kind of what we've been talking about with building that resilience, but putting that armor on, and tying it into your Fix Yourself Handbook?
Yeah, I can. I do a chapter in there. It's called learning how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We don't like that. And I always say, the best part of my life is my willingness to say, I want to do that better. I want to do it better tomorrow, but I want to like the process. Like I said, I'll be 70 in December, and I work out hard every day. And someone says, well, what are you trying to prove? One of my friends said, not a darn thing. When I'm down, I have a training center in my basement. When I go down there, I am in my glory. It's my body I'm working on. I absolutely love the process. How many people, how many athletes do you know that say, man, I love practice. I love working out. I love that. If you don't love that, you do not love the art of building who you are.
That's a
So
good point.
I have no, there's no point where I am, in my mind, I'm ever going to say I arrived. There's no point where I say I got it where I want it to be. Not that I'm dissatisfied with them. I just know that there are more opportunities. Every breath, the Lord gave me breaths and He's not done giving them to me. So I'm going to maximize all of them. That's my philosophy. You got to love the process of creating yourself. It's not,
Well,
you don't have to set goals every day. I don't set goals. I want to lift this much or I want to be on there an hour. I just go down and say, I want to push myself and enjoy the process. That's it. And I don't miss. I'm 6 day a week guy. I love it, and that's what I do in every aspect of my life. I hear a word I don't know. I'm going to go get it. I want to find out what it is. Everything. If you enjoy the process of making yourself the person you want to be, it answers the question that no one ever answers. How do you love yourself? That's how. If
yeah.
you love yourself, it comes from every day. I'm going to do what I got to do to make myself really feel great about me. That's how you love yourself. It's a process.
That's such a great piece of advice. First of all, I want to tell everybody that's not watching the show and actually listening that Faust looks like he's 50. He's Italian. I don't know if it's the vino or what you guys put in your body, but yeah, he definitely doesn't look 70 by or close to 70 by any means. So you've done a great job with taking care of yourself. But uh, you touched on we're talking about the process way of life. And when you're as an athlete, if I'm thinking, okay, I got to get a college scholarship. I got to sign professionally. I have to make the big leagues. I want to be in the Hall of Fame. Or I'm joining a company. I've got to conquer social media. I got to be a manager. I got to be a director. I'm going to be the CEO of this company. You go through these processes, right? It's like no patience whatsoever for that day-to-day grind of learning about yourself as you just described. What's your biggest advice to the young athletes, the young employees, um, or even somebody that's been working for a while that just hasn't really had that opportunity for growth, the promotion? They want it now, but there's this process, right? What's your biggest advice for patience, learning about yourself, the timeline to get to that point where you're at today, where you're like, I'm 6 days a week. I see a word, I want to go see it. How long did that take you to get to that point?
I think I always had the drive, Todd. I was, I played ball in college and I was good. But I also knew that forget about even if I got drafted, I don't have the body that was going to last. You know what I mean? I had a Pete Rose mentality to play baseball. It was 110% all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't have, and I'm 5 feet 8 inches tall, 155. I was not gonna, it just wasn't gonna happen. So I was smart enough to realize that. However, I knew all along that I could feel not just the adrenaline. I felt a different level of being, if you will, when I kept challenging myself and never turned it off. So here I am, and you can even see the way I'm talking. I'm enthusiastic about the way I live, and because that's the way it has to be. And it's not about the game. The game is you get in the game, great. Now you go perform. It's what you're taking into the game that's going to make you great or not. You're not going to just walk in on your abilities may be great, and for some of the few, they didn't have to do much training. We're not all Babe Ruth, okay? You know what I mean? You don't get a hot dog before the game, you know. But the rest of the people, you have to be able, and we talk about that armor. You put it on, you go. You're engaged in your own life, and you're engaged in the practice it takes to get you there, because that's going to make you great. It's as simple as that.
I think, our society has shifted. I've spoken to a lot of different people all over the world. I'm probably just telling you or saying something that you already know. But the cultural shift from me, selfish, I want it, I want it, to now there's this cultural shift of love and respect. I think you're starting to see across the globe, probably because we've all been knocked down due to COVID. We've all probably had our own experiences that were dealt to us. That there's more stars, there's more celebrities, there's more people coming out like myself and like you that are saying, hey, you can still be as tough as a damn animal. You can be a lion, but it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to recognize that you're not alone. It's okay to build this process way of life, this mind mapping, this, whatever that may be. But um, where I'm going with this is uh, as you're learning this and you have this whole cultural change of mental health, right? Everybody's focused on mental health, and really, I think it's more building that resilience piece of yourself out, right? It's how to learn how to be resilient. It's learning your own personal strength. So if I'm a baseball coach and I've got a team, I know you've all experienced something different, but I want to focus on not the mental health side, because that's all part of it. It's all the big umbrella, right? But I want everybody to understand, where are you weak? Where are you weak in your own mind when it comes to your overall gameplay? Where are you weak outside of it, right? How do you approach that with people that you've worked with, in identifying their own weakness? Because we don't want to talk about that, but it's such an integral part to everything, right?
Yeah, people have a hard time with that. And what I do is I make it actionable. I said, okay, we're going to make a list of all the things in your life that work against where you want to go. For example, you come in and say, I'm anxious a lot. I'm even getting some panic attacks. And I say, okay, let's talk about your diet. And of course, people say, what's that got to do with anything? And I said, well, how much coffee you have every day? Any energy drinks? What's your diet look like? I'm talking about purging before you move ahead. If I said to you, if you're a swimmer and I said, hey, I'm going to swim across the channel here, and you say, yeah, I've been training, I'm real good. And I said, that's great. I'm going to attach these weights to your feet. You're going to say, well, I'll sink. And I say, that's the stuff that holds you back in your life. When I work with athletes, I always say, let's look at what's going to hold you back. Relationships, substance abuse, late hours, not applying yourself in practice for whatever reason. We all have these. I call them comfort prisons. They're the comfort zones we love to keep, but in the end, they're toxic and they get in the way of everything that we're doing. Let's purge before we move ahead. And then I talk about being brutally honest. You read the book, you got to be to the point where you're willing to say, yeah, that's me. I don't like it, but that's real. And these things are holding me back. And I got to get these things out of my life. Or at least I got to get them straightened out. Now I can begin to put things in. It's like your garage that's packed full of stuff and you want to get the car in. You're not getting it in until you purge the garage. Well, it's the same thing in life. I get all the junk out of there. I do it with myself. Every book I've written, if you read my books, the last chapter is I call Good Housekeeping. You got it going. Now let's keep it going. So you keep on purging and you keep on going back and revisiting the issues, because the moment you stop, it's an invitation for everything to come back in. So the process is always purge what doesn't work, keep attention on that, then have a plan to move forward and work the plan and never stop. You do that, nothing can hold you back.
Wow. Your comment just on the swimmer going across the channel and you mentioning him to put weights on your ankles, and the immediate response is, well, I'll sink. That's such a mindset you want to change. Oh man, that's all. And I love the advice too to coaches, to business leaders, just identify, hey, let's build a list. What's holding you back from getting to where you want to go? Let's identify it right off the bat. What an easy way for coaches, leadership, first responders, military leaders. What a great way to not be intrusive in asking, but just trying to help that person become a better, stronger individual, a better man, a better woman, a better person in society, a better leader, right? What's holding you back from getting where you want to go? Everybody has their own version of where that is.
Mhm.
It's so
And
cool.
once you purge it, once you get to the point that you can access the strengths, everything changes. I do some counseling for a lot of universities in my area. One of the coaches, baseball coach, calls me and says, "They got this guy. He's good, but we're talking about a 200 batting average, on base percentage that's mid twos. Work with this guy with me." When he came in, I said, "All right, we're not talking baseball. We're not, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to see what doesn't work in your life and in your head." We purged 3 or 4 things out of his head, some personal things out of there. And then we got him into a workout program that had nothing to do with a goal of, their team winning the state championship. The guy this year batted I think it was 313, raised his batting average like 108 points. On base percentage, he's now the leadoff hitter. On base percentage was 370. I didn't do anything to this man in terms of baseball skills. I don't ever interfere with the coaching staff is doing, but I just cleaned out. I just, took all the jokers out of the deck. That's what I did. And when he went back in, he was all aces and he was confident. And when pitchers were adjusting, that's what pitchers do. They make adjustments. He was adjusting along with them. He was actually learning how to, he called it, control the pitchers, which is what I always teach. If you're a batter, you can't react all the time. You got to be able to mess that guy up a little bit. So he learned all these things because the confidence was there, the strength was there. We got the junk out of the way. His emotions were balanced. His head was clear. Now he's the player. He's gonna and I think this guy has a chance to get drafted. He's that good.
I love it because, you come from a relatable experience too. I mean, you were a collegiate athlete. You understood the grind, or you understand the grind, not understood because you are still in it. I think once you understand that, you always get it. But so, I was a big Ken Revisa, the late Ken Revisa, sports psychologist. I was a huge fan of his. I met him when I was younger. My dad, he was with the Angels back in the day when my dad was there, and then when I was playing for the Angel organization, Kenny was there, and I remember one of the first things that he taught us, where all the pitchers are laying on the ground, right, and he's talking and having us close our eyes, and he's putting us through this mental part. And he said, "Listen, one of the things that you guys should probably do when you first show up at a ballpark, because you guys are playing all over the place, different ballparks, is walk in, identify something in center field that can be a focal point where if you get in the game and maybe you go 3 balls in a row, or maybe you give up a home run or 2 home runs or whatever, just something's not going right, that you can step off the rubber, you can circle the mound, focus on that, whatever that is that you pre-found, whether it's a tree in the outfield, a seat, a pillar, a piece on the scoreboard, a brand, a logo, whatever that is that you've already identified. Focus on that. Try to separate, like, who created that design, who planted that tree, how old is that tree, just for a few seconds, and then come back around, step up on the rubber, take that big deep breath, refocus, and get back into where you are. So be present in that moment, right? So it's like kind of stepping out of the theater. I'm going to step outside for a minute, gather my breath, refocus. I'm going to come back in. Now I'm back on the stage. Faust, when I was in Las Vegas, I actually remembered some of that going back and forth, especially after I would deal with a horrible, horrible situation of laying somebody down. And I'd get back up, and there were water bottles getting thrown everywhere. Everybody was screaming for waters and stuff. And so occasionally I'd ask for a water. I poured over myself, and I take that big, deep breath, right? And it recentered me, it rebalanced me, as you mentioned earlier, it refocused me. And then I got my boots moving again. How important is that every day of our lives?
It is
Talk a little bit about that reset.
the reset. Psychologist says focus on something out in center field. What he did is it's a purging trick. Pitchers particularly get into bad rhythms. And people talk, the coaches all talk about you did this wrong, this motion. It's here. It's a glitch. I was watching an Aaron Nola interview, and he says, he gets hit for great pitching, great. Then there's the home run. He'll glitch, and then the delivery isn't where he wants it. So what he's doing is saying, okay, let's purge that moment, is what he's doing. Focus over there, clear it all out, refocus, and go back. So he's right on the mark. In life, for example, I go to a party. Someone is throwing a party, and we go, and I always say to my wife, and she knows what I'm going to do this. We're having a great time. Then I walk outside. And some will say, and she'll just make the excuse. And in fact, now she joins me, and we'll go out and we'll just talk for a minute, or like we're going to the car or something, and go back in, refocus, because you get stuck in that whole social, whatever's going on, get out of the conversations, go back in. It's like I walked in again, and here we are. And how's everybody? And it changes the way we live. If we can do that routinely, I do it all day long. Get out of that thing. And if you watch me live my life, I'm at one point after the other. We'll finish this, and then a half hour later, I have my first person tonight, and I'll go till 7:30. And when we're done, I have something else I have to do for my publicist. Be back 8 o'clock. My wife and I'll finally sit down, and we'll enjoy some time together. One after the other, fresh on every one of them. That's the key.
It's so important for people to understand that that's not a bad thing.
Oh, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing to separate from that anxiety-driven moment. Separate, like you mentioned, just go outside for a minute. Even your wife knows, okay, hold on. I'm going to go do that too, because it makes you feel good. You re-energized. You get back up on the mound, you're re-energized. You get back in that squad car, you get back on that firehouse. You're refocused, you're rebalanced. I think, life is such about like just staying in your lane and being centered, right? So
the reason that this is good, your brain operates on a variety of different levels. You have your conscious stuff, but that doesn't mean the brain doesn't hear this and perceive this. Again, you're back to the pitcher on the mound. He's focused in on the catcher, and then someone behind does something with something shiny or whatever, but that happens in milliseconds all over the place. So it's not only that it makes sense, it's almost imperative. Get your head away from all that. It clears everything that came in and gives your brain more brain space, more functioning space, more time to perceive and react in situations. They don't. The way the game works, and I'm not a fan of all the changes. Pitcher has that 15-second walk around the mound, grab the rosin bag, and go back. That's necessary in my mind for a pitcher. They took that away from them, But that is so clear. That's what has you constantly focusing in, because the moment you walked around, you cleared your head of everything you were stuck in and didn't even know you were stuck in it. That's the key. And that's
a lot of our younger people. As we start to wrap up the show here, a lot of our younger people, I don't think, have had that opportunity, just the way that they were raised, to slow their life down, to sit up on top of a tree and overlook, wherever they climbed up to go see, or go on that bike ride and enjoy the scenery and that mental separation that you get from the everyday life. I think everything's just been so go, 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 that even the whole idea of taking away the walk around the mound and pick up the rosin bag and do your own routine, whatever that is, to be able to separate, you got to find it now. And I think that's such a great lesson for coaches, for our leaders, to be able to now instill into these younger generations, because they want help. They're, as you got younger firefighters wanting change. They want mental health advocates to come in. They need to be able to talk. They're more open to talk. The senior leaders, the people that are somewhat on the outs in the next 10, 15 years, they're a dying breed where everything is man up, let's go grind away. I don't want to hear it. But even that's starting to change, and people are starting to adopt it, because they know holy cow, I've never felt this much peace before. I talked to a Navy SEAL not too long. It was about 8 months ago. So I guess it was a while ago, but he was more, he was dealing with something that happened 20 years ago. And over that 20-year journey, he let this thing eat him, lose night's sleep. Within 5 minutes of conversation, he makes a change. He dives in for himself. He made a phone call. He talked to his buddy that he thought he had almost killed in a combat situation. They cried. They came together, and he has great night's sleep now, all because he was willing to let his guard down, to understand where he needed to be to learn more about himself on the inside. And this is one of the, I mean, this guy could probably just break my neck in 2 seconds, right? Real tough guy, but we're all tough. We're all tough people. And I love what you're doing and how you've empowered people to not only build a better mental wellness and health about themselves, but you're empowering strength. You're creating lions. It's not just, hey, I'm going to teach you something that's going to make you weak. You are pounding strength. You're putting armor on them. And it's really inspiring. So I just really appreciate you sharing everything. It's awesome.
No, it's been a pleasure. You know, I like to close these things and just let people know we all have the ability to do this. Everybody's got the strength and the power it's already in there. You got to purge, get the junk off that doesn't apply, stop focusing and follow outside of yourself and following the crowd. You make decisions for who you are, you own them, and you make them work. Embrace your life. It's not that difficult. It's just something you have to you do every day, but you have to embrace it. You got to love doing it. That's the bottom line.
Well, you're an author, you're a poet of psychology, and just, I mean, you're just throwing down, words of wisdom. How do people get in touch with you? I know throughout this episode, you're not seeing it right now because we're recording, but I'll have some information flashing across the screen. I'll have your book up, but outside of probably Amazon, where are we buying your book? How can people get a hold of you? If I'm a coach and I want you to talk to my players, how do we do that?
Best place to find me is on my website. It's my name, FaustRuggiero.com. Everything about me, 5 books. They're all there. I put excerpts so people can look and say, well, let me read a little bit of this. Does this apply for me? I think it's good to be transparent that way. If people want to contact me, there's a contact link, and I do get back to people.
Awesome. Yeah, it's so cool. As an aspiring author, I'm writing my book now, about 190 pages in. So I'm jealous you got 5. So, but that's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. You get to this point, and that's what we do. We have a new one coming out in November for substance abuse. So it's a lot of fun and it's a lot of work, but again, it's like anything else. Once you learn how to love the work, all the work you do is something that works for you. You're integrating everything you're doing into your life, and you're moving forward on so many different cylinders. It's just a fun way to live life.
So cool. Sir, thank you so much for your time today. And this was really an awesome episode. I learned more about myself, which I'm really excited to get out and practice. But thank you for being on I'm Going In.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me.